What's up, everybody? Thanks for clicking this video. Thanks for tuning into my channel. My name is Simon Hill, Black American from Louisiana, coming to you live from Budapest, Hungary. Today is May 1st, 2024, about 7:35 p.m. where I'm at, and I'm coming back on live today because earlier I was doing a live stream, but then I had to cut it short. And I had to cut it short because I'm gonna keep it real. I was talking a lot of shit, but then I had to take a shit, and it was a serious shit. I had to hop off the live stream because I had a code 2 emergency, and I had to blow up the porcelain bowl. For real, for real. I hope that might be TMI for the people out here, but I just got to keep it real. But you know what? I felt bad that I had a lot more that I wanted to say about the topic. Plus, my longtime subscriber, Donnie Williams, jumped into the chat and he revealed himself to be a Second Amendment guy. Now, I find that very ironic or weird that I have Second Amendment people who follow me when all I did throughout my time on this channel is talk about how the Second Amendment is destroying Black lives in America, how it's tearing apart the fabric of American society, yet and still stupid Americans worship the long black metal phallus that makes them feel American, makes them feel proud, makes them feel free, and destroys so many people's lives. So I would like to hear what Donnie Williams has to say. If Donnie Williams want to come back into the chat and have that discussion about his love for long black metal rods and how much he loves the gun and worships the gun and why he thinks the gun is important for Americans to have. But I'm a real Louisianian, and Louisianians, we go hard. So what I'm going to do to make up for the fact that I fell off doing the live stream earlier about these several topics. I'm gonna do 3 topics today covering Louisiana, everything that's happening in my home state, and hopefully y'all enjoy it. This is only for the real ones, so if this is not your speed, you don't have to tune into it. I'm just doubling back because I made a mistake earlier. I was talking a lot of shit and I couldn't handle my shit. So now we're back here to do this shit for real, for real. So we're gonna start with this story that I started with last time. All right, it's about gun violence in Baton Rouge, what they're trying to do to stop it. If you didn't see the previous live stream, the majority of young black men are murdered by gun violence, right? It's the #1 killer of young black men. We need to do something about it in the country. Baton Rouge is a city that has a predominantly black population. And why does this city have so much violence and homicides? And what can we do to stop it? So let's read this story. Then we're going to jump into this story about New Orleans. Then we're going to jump into this other story about back in Baton Rouge. The white folks there want to create their own city to get away from all the black folks in Baton Rouge. And they're taking the tax dollars with them, continuing to perpetuate white supremacy by hoarding all the wealth to themselves instead of trying to be a part of a society and help make Baton Rouge a better place for all citizens. Anyway, going to jump to the story here. So Angel Hawkins and Liz Robinson both lost a child to gun violence. A city tries to measure the violence it's preventing. In Baton Rouge, a public safety experiment could help to answer a critical question: do community efforts to reduce street violence work? This was written by Mark Obi, photographs by Dean Majid, reporting from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, April 22nd, 2024. All right. So here's Kamal in the chat right here. He said, I volunteered 6 months after Hurricane Katrina and always thought Louisiana was statistically dangerous enough. Good coverage. Shout out to Kamal right here for jumping into the chat. Louisiana is one of the most dangerous places in the world. And I'm shocked every day that I made it out. And anybody who is living in Louisiana will tell you that Louisiana is worse than Iraq, worse than Afghanistan, because it could happen at any moment, at any time. Anyway, continuing here. When Liz and Lewis Robinson's eldest son, Lewis Jr., began to court troubles on the streets of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, Miss Robinson worried that one of the bullets flying through their neighborhood and occasionally through their windows and walls would eventually find him. So she gave him an ultimatum. I told him a military man is going to come home, she remembered. Either you go with him or you can get out of my house. This was 2008, and Americans were stationed in war zones in Iraq and Afghanistan. But she figured those places were safer than Baton Rouge. Lewis Jr. took option A, joining the Army the year after he graduated from high school. After 6 years in the service, including 1 year in Iraq, Lewis came home. He took a Coca-Cola warehouse job, became a father to 3 children, and was performing as a rapper under the name Lewis Badass. Just shy of his 30th birthday, Lewis Jr. was leaving a friend's house when he was shot dead. He was one of 78 people killed in Baton Rouge in 2018. Miss Robinson grieved. She was also angry at the people shooting up her neighborhood and at potential witnesses who wouldn't help the police solve the crime, at the police for not finding her son's killer. Here's Lewis Jr., rest in peace to him. Long live Lewis Badass. But rappers from Louisiana, just because Boosie made it big with Badass, let's try to think of more original names. But regardless, rest in peace, Lewis, and prayers for his family, his mother right here, and his babies. So Miss Robinson with their two grandchildren, that was in the previous picture. And here's the empty lot on Cadillac Street, near where Lewis Jr. became one of 78 people killed in Baton Rouge in 2018. 6 months before Lewis Jr. was killed, Murphy Paul became the chief of police in Baton Rouge. Mr. Paul had come from upper ranks of the Louisiana State Police, and Sharon Weston Broome, the mayor who hired him, gave him a mandate: make a change. Among his early acts was dismissing a white police officer who shot and killed a black man named Alton Sterling in 2016. The officer's actions and Sterling's death, caught on phone cameras, ignited existing tensions between police and black residents in the city. Chief Paul, who is black, began an overhaul of the police department's policies on discipline and the use of force. This brother right here is a coon. This is a capital coon. COON. This is a coon. He got the job, and the job was his first duty as an officer was to forgive a white police officer who murdered a black man on camera. If you don't believe me that Alton Sterling was murdered, type it in on YouTube, Alton Sterling police killing, and see what happens. Murphy Paul, you are a COON. This is the problem. We have too many black faces in high places in Louisiana who end up doing the bidding of the white supremacists. No police officer who murders an American citizen, regardless of their ethnicity, race, or background, deserves clemency, deserves freedom. You get what I'm saying? Kamal said, forgive? Yes, forgive. He forgave him. Chief Murphy Paul forgave an officer who murdered a black man on camera. This black man right here. And this is the last thing that we need in office in Louisiana or throughout our state or throughout our country. We don't need black men with no spines who are going to continue to uphold white supremacy. Okay, so Kamal said, prime example of the problem: submission. Yes, it is, absolutely. Submitting to white supremacy is one of our biggest faults. Continuing here, but reforming a mostly white police department in a black majority city was only part of the job. Just as urgent was confronting the street gun violence, what social scientists sometimes call community gun violence, that led to Lewis Jr.'s death. While mass shootings strike at seemingly random locations, concerts, parades, schools, community gun violence strikes dependably in the most disadvantaged city blocks. Apart from suicide, it is by far the deadliest use of guns in the United States, and hits hardest in places where poverty and lack of opportunity give rise to crime. Homicide was the leading cause of death among black people between 15 and 24 in 2021. Let's repeat that for everybody in the back. Homicide was the leading cause of death among black people, black men, black women, black gay folks, black straight folks, black trans folks, black Muslims, black Christians, black people between the ages of 15 and 24. The number one killer of black people is gun violence, homicide. According to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, in Baton Rouge, where just over half of the 221,000 residents are black, 85% of the homicide victims in 2022 and 80% of the homicide suspects were black. Think about that. A city of 200,000 people. 85% of the people who were murdered that year were black, and 80% of the people who did the killing were black. What can we do? What can we do? What can we do as a people to stop the madness? The white supremacists love to talk about Chicago. Every time we want to bring up a racist police officer who murdered somebody in the back, part of the reason that they do have a point, and I'm not trying to all lives matter this, but we as black folks need to be on the front line on abolishing the Second Amendment, getting rid of the guns in our community, because the guns are the number one killer of black people. Period. The gun violence thing should be the number one thing on all of our minds. All of our minds. So yes, Chicago does matter just as much as the racist ass police who shoot us in the back, and the George Zimmermans who are out here upholding white supremacy. You get what I'm saying? Think about this. 15 to 24 years old in the United States, the number one most likely way a black person who is gay, who is straight, who is trans, who is Christian, who is Muslim, who is Jewish, who is non-religious, who is atheist, who's a basketball player, who's a chess player, a black person who likes white women, a black person who likes black women, whatever. The number one killer of them is gun violence. And black folks are on the internet talking about all sorts of other crazy stuff, talking about Doja Cat's booty and whatever Kanye West tweeted next. But we ain't talking about our children literally dying in the streets. Come on now. Come on now. Kamal said 42 states, lived in 11. Spot on. Spot on. In every state, gun violence is killing black folks. Why aren't we talking about this more? Why do we continue to uphold the gun as something that makes us free? As black folks, it does not make us free. If black folks are really talking about the gun is making us free, when y'all gonna start murdering cops? When y'all gonna start shooting these cops in the back of the head? When y'all gonna hog tie George Zimmerman and throw him in the trunk? Y'all niggas ain't talking that shit. Y'all niggas ain't gonna do that shit because y'all pussy. Y'all pussy, but y'all want to hold on to the gun acting like the white man. Acting like the white man, holding onto a black long metal phallus to make you feel like an American, to make you feel like a man. Well, if you were a real man, if you were a real black man who really wants freedom for our people, I don't see y'all outside really ready to start the revolution. Y'all stockpile all those weapons, all those Dracos, all those ARs, all those AKs, and y'all ain't outside popping at the police, popping at the National Guard, popping at the mayor, popping at the DA. Y'all ain't doing none of that shit. So shut the fuck up and let's get rid of the guns in America. Period. 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 I'm sick of this shit. Donnie Williams, bitch ass, need to get back into the chat. Because anybody who wants to talk about the Second Amendment on my channel, you a bitch for real. Anybody black talking about we need the guns to protect us, you a bitch for real. Because what you gonna say to our dead children in Philadelphia, in Chicago, in Miami? What, you want to continue to buy guns and spend more money on the gun lobbyists so they can continue to flood our cities, flood our communities with guns, and have our children be murdered? That's what y'all about? That's what y'all about? I'll respect a black gun owner when he tells me he's gonna go out on a crash out mission and shoot up the police department. The first nigga that say he gonna walk into the police department and air that bitch out, he'll have my respect. That nigga can have a gun. Until then, y'all shut the fuck up. That might get my channel deleted for real. All right. Anyway. Kamal says exactly why I left the Black American community. By the way, I'm not promoting violence. I want to make this absolutely clear. I'm not promoting violence. I'm not trying to make that point that people should shoot police or that people should walk into the police department and do that. But I'm just saying, the point is, we don't need weapons in the street. We don't need all these guns in the street. And the point is, people make these talking points like we need weapons to protect us and keep us safe as Americans, to protect our rights as Americans, especially as Black Americans, because throughout our history, we have been abused by the powers that be. And so we need guns to protect us, but we're not using those guns to actually protect us. What is actually happening is that these weapons are flooding into the illegal market, causing more and more of our children to die, more and more young people to die, more and more mothers having to cry over their sons, and more fathers having to mourn over their sons. You get what I'm saying? But y'all ain't hearing me though. Anyway, going ahead. I'm gonna continue here. So the concentration of this violence helps fuel it. Victims, shooters, and their families are often entangled in networks that can be impervious to and suspicious of law enforcement. Chief Paul wanted to break through those barriers. He embraced the prevailing progressive theory of police reform. Police should be guardians of a community, not warriors against it. If the police are trusted, the theory goes, witnesses feel comfortable coming forward and crimes are solved, disrupting cycles of violence and retaliation among a tiny number of heavily armed young men. To that end, in early 2019, Chief Paul met with Miss Robinson and other people who had lost family members to violence. I wasn't prepared for the passion, outrage, the anger, and the pain that I was going to experience, the chief said. Miss Robinson in particular gave him an earful. He persisted. Better policing, he told the family members, was essential but insufficient. Look, he told them, we need help. All right, here are the mothers right here, once again, trying to make change for their sons. After Liz Robinson lost her son to gun violence, she decided to run a nonprofit called Change to help other families affected by gun violence. Go into the comments here. Kamal said, daughters too these days. Absolutely. Our daughters are losing their lives because some of their boyfriends or husbands are going crazy. There was a viral video that was running around on social media a few days ago. This boyfriend in Baltimore got a restraining order against him and then ran down on his ex and shot her like in broad daylight on the pavement in the parking lot. Now, who can justify that? Who can say that we need more guns in society? Why? So more husbands can kill their wives, so more girlfriends can kill their boyfriends, so more people in fucked up and toxic relationships can commit heinous atrocities against each other. Y'all gonna give all sorts of excuses like, oh, well, in other countries, people murder each other too. They got knives, they got scissors, they could do that shit with. But in America, it is exceptional. It's exceptional how that happens in America. But y'all want to give all the excuses y'all have in the world so y'all can have a black hard metal thing strapped to your hip or laying next to your bed that you secretly want to fillet. Here's what y'all should do, you gun owners out there: blow your motherfucking brains out. Every gun owner out there, blow your motherfucking brains out, because the last thing we need in America are more people spending money on $1 billion industry that's killing our kids, literally. I want y'all to commit that for real. Everybody, every one of y'all commit that. Because all you're doing with every weapon you buy, every bullet you buy, every permit you pay for, every time you buy a holster, whatever stupid shit you get for your little toy, it goes into the hands of the politicians and the lobbyists who are advocating for more and more and more Americans to buy their guns. It's basic capitalism. It's just like if you went to McDonald's and continue to buy Big Macs, you're going to make sure that McDonald's can always try to lobby the government to sell the cheapest possible food at the lowest possible quality. That's exactly what you're doing. But y'all don't hear me, though. Americans are fucking stupid. Fucking stupid. Y'all don't care how many other citizens die every time. All right. So Kamal jumped into the comments. He says every 16 hours, a woman is killed by a male. Google it, critics. Absolutely. Absolutely. Every 16 hours, our sisters, our daughters, our grandmothers, our mothers are murdered by other men, by guns. But y'all want that black metal phallus, huh? Y'all really want to pop, pop, pop at the shooting range. It makes you feel big, hard, and tough to carry around hard metal things, huh? All right. Anyway, the chief promised to work with members of the community, directing more resources and police help to groups already trying to prevent violence. Moreover, in a new experiment, he would work within a broader public safety program run by the mayor's office and community groups, spreading responsibility for public safety beyond the police. All this, he hopes, would help to prevent further violence. But determining which prevention strategies really work is an evolving and complicated science. Law enforcement strategies are studied more often than community-driven alternatives, which means most existing research backs up police-driven approaches. Federal anti-violence funding has long skewed heavily toward policing, and police departments have the training and systems to collect the raw data that researchers use to study violence trends. When it comes to community violence intervention, methods like the one being tried in Baton Rouge, there are some promising results, but the number of studies is limited and the overall evidence remains unsettled. All right, so Sasha Khan says, do you think it's possible that the police can be reformed in America? Because presumably you think the police is at least potentially more trustworthy than random, slightly background checked men. Since at least some of the police would presumably still have guns. Not exactly sure what you mean, Sasha Khan. I do not advocate for a police-less society. I do think police are necessary for our society. We do need somebody to enforce the laws, to make sure that people's property, people's lives are protected. But I believe in America, we have an exceptionally stupid society that believes that we can also deputize regular random citizens to help enforce the law or to protect their own rights. That's not what we need. Just like in Europe, in Hungary, where I am, for example, it is not expected of the citizens to have weapons to protect their own personal property and themselves. They expect that the state, through the police, should be able to help, be enough to help protect themselves and their personal property and their families and all extensions of their being. But in America, we're fucking stupid. In America, we think not only will we have a police state where our police will be trained to be almost like paramilitary troopers running around our society with tanks and battering rams and AR-15s and all sorts of stuff, we'll also deputize the citizens so that they can also shoot at other citizens who they presume are violating their rights, even if they are not aware of the law or if they are mistaken in these situations and that sort of stuff. That's why America is fucking stupid. You get what I'm saying? So I don't get exactly your question, but I hope I answered your question. I do believe police are important, but what we need is a reform in American society where police are not murdered by citizens like they were in Charlotte a few days ago. An American citizen killed four police officers. That's not okay. That's not cool. Blue lives matter. Everybody should be able to go to work and come back home safely. Police should not be killed while on the job. Nobody deserves to be killed while on the job. Period. 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 But in America, we make that extremely hard for police because we also deputize our regular civilians. We say, civilian, yes, have your gun. Yes, civilian, you can walk around with it in public. Yes, like in Florida or Ohio or Texas, you don't even need a background check or a permit to get your gun. Everybody gets a gun. because the people who buy guns legally are putting money in the hands of these companies who then pay the lobbyists who then go to Washington that say, let's try to make it easier for our clients, which are the gun manufacturers, to sell their products to as many Americans as possible. Duh. But Americans are fucking stupid. They believe the propaganda that a company has told to them that this gun makes you free. No, nigga, the Big Mac makes you free. Levi's jeans make you free. 5150 fitted caps make you free. Michelin S jerseys make you free. But the gun don't make you free, nigga. It just kills more Americans, especially black Americans. But y'all don't hear me though. Y'all fucking stupid. Y'all believe the propaganda, but y'all ain't really ready to do what needs to be done to get free. Y'all just want to continue giving your money to the white man by buying more guns. Dumbass niggas. Anyway, Kamal gave me the brown fist. Okay, interesting. Kamal might not even be black. Ain't that interesting? Anyway, continuing here. In recent years, however, hundreds of millions of dollars from private foundations and the Biden administration have gone into these alternatives, offering a genuine opportunity to study their effectiveness. It's exciting and it's a moment of some trepidation as well because there's a lot on the line, said Nina Revoyer of Baldmer Group, the lead private founder of the organization advising Baton Rouge's experimental program. To people on the ground, helping a teenager get a summer job or calming a street dispute before it boils over is a self-evident success. But funders and policymakers want quantifiable statistical evidence that these programs reduce violence overall. Future support nationwide hinges on the rigorous collection and analysis of that data. Go into the comments here. Sasha Khan said, you did. Your answer is the police can be trained to protect the citizens better than an amateur who could be incompetent. And so reform can mean that police eventually become a non-racist U.S. force. You did answer it. Yes, when it comes to the non-racist part of policing, I do believe that white supremacy and racism, to some degree, can never be out legislated in people's minds. We cannot pass a law that makes people not racist. But what we can do is repeal laws or not pass future laws that have racist implications. For example, right? For example, the disparities in the criminal justice system, right? Somebody who deals crack cocaine is more likely to get a longer sentence, right? Because crack cocaine is seen as a much harsher drug than regular cocaine, right? So somebody who deals crack, most of the time they're black people, of course, they're going to get 10, 15-year sentences. Meanwhile, somebody who deals regular old cocaine, usually a white person, is going to get a 5-year sentence or maybe even probation or that sort of stuff. So we need a reform in the criminal justice system and also a cultural shift in America that does not view black men as a natural threat. And so if that happens in a national sense to people, right, then there won't be that same sort of disparity in policing where police are more likely to shoot black men or police are more likely to harass black men or arrest black men. And also those same inequities won't also happen in the actual court when sentences are given for crimes and that sort of stuff. So yes, I do think police can essentially become non-racist, but in non-racist in the sense that they're not enforcing racist laws. There will still be racist police officers in white supremacist America. But the biggest problem in America is that too many people can act on their virulent racism by having easy access to guns. I'd rather live in Germany that's full of Nazis that do not have guns rather than in America, where we have a handful of neo-Nazis and Proud Boys and white supremacists and MAGA fucktards who do have guns. You get what I'm saying? That's the big difference. That's the big difference. In America, we have a ton of racist people who have access to guns. And in Europe or in other places in the world, you have racist people who do not have access to guns and they cannot regularly access that. You get what I'm saying? That's the big difference for me. Now, y'all let me know how y'all feel about that. Am I right or am I wrong in that? This is a conversation. I would like to hear what people say in the chat. Talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Anyway, continuing here. Baton Rouge is taking on the data collection challenge, and that means the people trying to prevent violence must learn a strange new language, complex, sometimes messy situations, offhand conversations with teenagers in schools, bedside visits to hospital emergency rooms, late night responses to chaotic crime scenes have to be translated into atomized units that can flow into spreadsheets and databases and regression analyses. The process of codifying human interactions into orderly, ruthless statistics falls to teams of people whose preparation for this work often began with surviving violent traumas of their own. A year after Lewis Jr.'s death, Chief Paul approached Miss Robinson once again with a specific request. He wanted her to join a victim support group. This time, she agreed. Learning the Newark method. Let's continue here. The victim support group was run by Sateria Tate Alexander, another woman Chief Paul had recruited. Like Miss Robinson, Miss Tate Alexander, 48, raised her family in Baton Rouge. Her son had also been struck by a bullet at age 17, though he survived. But it was the police killing of Alton Sterling that kind of reality lit my fire, she said. She organized demonstrations, pitched into lobby legislatures for police reform, and convened neighborhood meetings. As the Baton Rouge project was taking off, Miss Tate Alexander visited Newark, New Jersey for inspiration. There she saw the city's street team in action and decided this is exactly what we need. Going here to the comments, Kamal says, so would I at this point. All right, when in reference to Germany, because Kamal put up the German flag. Yeah, I think black folks generally are the most unsafe in America. Let's keep it absolutely real. America is a very violent nation, and you won't realize how violent America is until you travel to other countries. When you come to Europe, or when you go to other nations like in Africa, even in Africa, for all the things that people say negatively about Africa, if you ask the regular African, hey, do you think in your country y'all need guns? They would say, no, nigga. If you ask the regular Hungarian, the regular Italian, the regular Turkish person, the regular German person, hey, would you think your society would be better if you had the gun laws that America has? They would say, hell no. The rest of the world looks at America crazy. The rest of the world looks at America crazy, and Americans look at the rest of the world through the eyes of somebody with Down syndrome, because Americans are retarded. And I want to see Donnie Williams, bitch ass, jump into the chat too. Defend yourself, sir. Donnie Williams, you half Portuguese. You half black and half Portuguese. In your mother's home country of Portugal, they don't have those wicked, stupid gun laws like we have in the U.S. Meanwhile, you would rather help perpetuate those stupid, evil laws in our U.S. rather than protesting against them by not buying the weapons. Johnny Williams, bring your bitch ass out and defend the Second Amendment. Defend the Second Amendment. Defend all the bloodshed behind all the bullets that are sold every single year in the U.S. Come out here and defend it. Anyway, Kamal says, I've been to Albania, he's been to Romania, and he has been to Germany. And Kamal, didn't you have a good time? Wasn't it safe in Albania? Wasn't it safe in Romania? Wasn't it safe in Germany? Didn't you have a great time there? I don't know. You tell me. Anyway, go in here. Newark had become a national beacon of violence reduction, in part through the work of Aquila Sherrills, whom an admirer calls one of the grandfathers or godfathers of community-based violence intervention. In 1992, at age 22, Mr. Sherrills, a former gang member, helped broker a truce between the Bloods and the Crips in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles. For the next dozen years, he crisscrossed the country and the globe, teaching about how he did it. That is what he was doing in 2004 when he was 18, when his 18-year-old son, Terrell, home on a break from college, was shot dead at a party. Trauma. Think about that, man. You're doing all these things to try to make the world a better and safer place, and your own son gets murdered in the United States of America, the richest, most powerful, most prosperous nation that ever existed in human society. Yet and still we have people getting shot down in the streets like dogs every single day in the U.S., and we think it's normal. People would rather talk about abortion is the number one killer of black folks. That is not true. Abortion is not the number one killer of black folks. It is gun violence. But y'all too worried about supporting right-wing talking points and actually trying to fix our country and fix black life. So Kamal says, best ever. Walked around Tirana, Bucharest, and Frankfurt alone. Never felt unsafe. Absolutely beautiful. I'm glad that Kamal is affirming the absolute truth that most black Americans need to know. We do not need to live in constant fear. We do not need to worry about having the strap when we're out cruising the block at night. We do not need to worry about having a piece with us when we go out to party. We don't need to worry about who's got the tool and who doesn't, or when somebody says, I got something in the trunk that don't miss. We don't need to worry about that in Frankfurt, in London, in Rome, in Madrid, in Bucharest, in Budapest. We don't need to worry about that. But yet and still, a lot of black folks want to support the system of white supremacy that keeps us living in perpetual fear and a number of black folks dying, and also not thinking outside the box, saying that we can create better lives for ourselves and our children outside of America, which we should be doing. And the number one reason to leave America is the gun violence and how it is plaguing black life. Continuing here. So after this activist's son was shot dead, Mr. Terrell's, he said, "It made me question everything. I was broken. His son's murder went unsolved. Friends urged retaliation against the man believed to have fired the gun. Neither the justice system nor street justice offered any balm for his trauma, and he began to understand this failure as the root of the problem. The system was sorting people into victims who were offered counseling and compensation, and perpetrators whom it either punished harshly or failed to hold accountable. To Mr. Sherrell's, the binary view encouraged a never-ending cycle of retaliatory violence." So Aquila Sherrell's, an anti-violence activist, brought the method he had used in Newark to Baton Rouge and other cities as well. All right, going here to the comments. Kamal said, "I'm about to leave the States once and for all. Stay on them." Check. Absolutely. I encourage you to live your best life. And once again, my message to black folks is not to entirely abandon the States. If you find your happiness, your peace in life in Alabama rather than, I don't know, Albania, or rather in Italy or in Indiana, it doesn't matter where you find peace in this world, in Africa or in Maine, it doesn't matter. Right? You should be happy because life is short. We only here for 60, 70, 80 years, maybe if we're lucky, right? Live your best life. All right. But I'll just say this. We should be considering better options and different ways and modes of living, because what's happening in the U.S. is not okay for us. We should not continue to accept seeing our brothers, our sisters gunned down every day in the streets and on TV and think that this is normal in the richest, most powerful nation in the world. It's not. Anyway, Sasha Khan says, "I personally agree with you. It would be better to limit gun ownership to agents of the government, such as police and military, and at least they can be dismissed if bad." Absolutely. And Sasha Khan, I think you're from the UK, and I think that's how it is up there. Now, in your country, they have a knife problem, right? And you cannot sort of get rid of knives in society. But once again, you don't have the mass shooting problem that you have in my country, right? That we have in my country. In the UK, I believe, where you're from, Sasha Khan, people, have the knife fights and stuff like that. People dying from sword attacks, as if it's like 1642 in the UK. But still, it's better than having guns floating around the streets, right? That do much more damage. Anyway, continuing here, Mr. Sherrell's argued that breaking the divide and providing mental health care and other support could deter young men from taking matters into their own hands. He took those ideas to Newark in 2014 and would later help to create a street team that focused as much on would-be shooters as on shooting victims and their families. The idea is to deploy former gang members or others with criminal records to mediate disputes and prevent retaliation. The street team offered people counseling and connections to jobs, housing, and healthcare, government agencies, and community-based organizations, and partnered to create what Mr. Sherrell's called a public safety ecosystem. In 2020, when cities nationwide saw spikes in gun violence, Newark held the line while all but eliminating police shootings. Mr. Sherrell said he was besieged with calls from cities wanting to learn Newark's special sauce. Later, he made connections in the Biden White House and helped organize a Black-led push for the national programs that are now funding efforts like the one in Baton Rouge. By 2023, his strategies were credited with helping to cut homicides in Newark in half since 2016. These are beautiful things. I'm glad that this program is out there, but what we need are more jobs. What we need are more work opportunities. The government should guarantee jobs for young people. That is not a far off idea. When I was a young kid preparing to go to college for a summer program, the government created jobs for all the young people who were preparing to go to college or who needed something to do after high school. This was a program that was ran by my home town of Monroe, Louisiana, and I was a part of that. And that helped change my life, helped put money in my pocket. It was the first time I actually started working for a check. It was a beautiful thing. That's what the government should do, be mandating jobs for young people, not just giving them programs, right? There's enough money in the U.S. to make sure everybody's a millionaire multiple times over. At least there's enough money to create jobs and opportunities for young people. A young person making a check got no time to worry about picking up a tech. That's Al Sharpton for you. Anyway. Continuing here, Baton Rouge became the first city outside New Jersey to be tutored in the Newark method. The mayor's office started an effort to mimic Newark's public safety ecosystem, overseen by Courtney Scott, then a mayoral aide. Four national organizations, including one founded by Mr. Sherrills, advised the city on community intervention and crime data analysis and other matters. At the heart of this national and local apparatus is the street team led by Miss Tate Alexander. So, calming the urge to retaliate. By June 2021, when Miss Tate Alexander started assembling the street team, Miss Robinson joined up. She had already taken a leading role at the victim support group, and eager to make an impact, she doubled up on her work. The two women clicked from the start. Miss Tate Alexander has a college degree and a background in information technology and project management. Miss Robinson, 55, who ran an office cleaning crew with her husband for many years, has dyed bright red hair and lets fly the occasional F-bomb. Liz came in and we could just see it in her, Miss Tate Alexander said. The fight was just there. Chief Paul ordered police dispatchers to send alerts to the team for shootings in the high crime neighborhoods that the team covers. The team's high risk interventionists are the first responders to shooting scenes and heated disputes. But Miss Robinson got an exemption from shooting scene duties. I just can't see a black man laid out there like that, she said. No. Four men do the bulk of the street team's outreach. They all grew up in Baton Rouge, and as in other cities with intervention programs, some sold drugs or committed even more serious crimes. One of the group's elders is Gerald Haynes, 51, who everyone calls Face for the jagged scar that runs from his left ear to his throat. Mr. Haynes spent 27 years in prison for his role in a drive-by shooting, an attempt at retribution for the killing of a friend. Mr. Haynes knew a thing or two about the urge to retaliate. It had cost him nearly 3 decades of freedom. He also thought he knew how to talk to young hotheads. In prison, he said, I had to learn how to deal with them in a confined area where I could not get away from them and they couldn't get away from me. But during his training in Newark, he discovered more refined skills of listening, reflecting back what people say to make them feel heard, and coming up with plans for people to step away from an argument without losing face. So here's Gerald Haynes right here. This man spent 27 years in prison. You would never know by looking at him. Black don't crack. Black don't crack. 27 years in prison. Goddamn. Goddamn. That's a long time. That's a hell of a long time. All right. Anyway, by the way, I don't think we should send people to jail for those. You know, if you shoot at somebody and you don't kill them, you shouldn't spend 27 years in jail. That's just my opinion. 10, maybe, but not 27. That's a bit much. We have excessive draconian laws in the U.S. when it comes to punishing people, especially in my home state of Louisiana, where we give out life sentences like it's candy. Anyway, Corey Brown, 32, another high-risk interventionist, is best known to many of the young people in the street team works with as the rapper Go Yella, with 129,000 Instagram followers. His skill with words is central to his job, but sometimes when a fight is brewing, he fears words will fail him. I could have both parties in a full-blooded conversation where everything's about to die down, and I got one knucklehead who feels like what I'm doing is soft, he said. But he's a powerful influence even when he's not on the scene. All right, continuing here. Here's Go Yella right here. I've heard of Go Yella. I heard of Go Yella, but I haven't heard of any of his music. If anybody knows any good Go Yella songs, recommend them. But I've heard his name, but I just can't think of anything that he's done. You get what I'm saying? So anyway, here's Darius Crockett with his son. So anyway, one of the street team's initiatives is a mentorship program in which young people at risk of violence are paired with mentors like Darius Crockett. Mr. Crockett had drifted to the streets as a teenager in Baton Rouge selling drugs, but he has since gotten his GED and found work as a welder. He was assigned to work with a 15-year-old named Markel. Shootings happen frequently on Markel's street. His mother, Kayla Atkins, uses a wheelchair, having been paralyzed by a gunshot long ago. Think about that, man. Imagine if your mama was in a wheelchair from random gunfire and your mama was not outside trapping on the block. Get it? That's crazy. From a young age, Markel had to be a caregiver to his mother, who's in a wheelchair from a gunshot, but Second Amendment people love this, right? Y'all love hearing about mothers in wheelchairs, right? That's what makes you happy, right? That's what being an American is about. Random mothers getting hit with gunfire and being stricken into wheelchairs, right? That's being free in America. Anyway, From a young age, Markel had to be a caregiver. As he entered his teens, he was getting into fights. When he was 14, one of his best friends was shot and killed. His mother said she desperately wanted to save her son from going down that path. The mentorship program required Markel to complete 3 goals. Knowing Markel wanted to rap, Mr. Crockett urged him to enter a talent contest where he performed an original rap song. Markel took first place, which meant he not only accomplished his first goal, but won prizes that would satisfy his other 2. He would be a featured performer in a video with Go Yella himself and participate in a recording session. Markella eagerly looked forward to the coming winter when the session would happen. Mr. Crockett also helped the boy land a job at a city-run summer camp. So, going to the comments here. Sasha Khan says, what is your opinion if the British government used the army to protect people and put the Met firearm units? Most British cops don't even have guns on standby until officers could send from other towns. I'm not exactly sure what you mean by that. Use the army to protect people and put the Met firearm units on standby until officers could be sent from other towns. So are you saying like using the National Guard of your country, like the Gendarme? Like Britain would start using like more military type soldiers to protect its citizens rather than just the police? If that's what you're implying, I don't know if the situation is that serious in the UK that would warrant that. It sounds like, you know, that would best be used for certain situations or certain areas in the UK. For example, I heard that some of the estates, some of the estates get a bit dicey. So, you know, where mans them in the estates are doing the most pokey pokey, who are doing the most stick-ups and where the blood is being poured the most, maybe the gendarme or the soldiers could come out. I don't know. That's just my idea. I'm not particularly familiar with British politics or what's happening in your scene, but I'm just giving my take. Good question, though. Anyway, so Sasha Khan says, the army seems more disciplined than the Metropolitan Police since they stood down a battalion over a confrontational orgy that denigrated women. What? A consensual orgy? In the UK, you guys have consensual orgies in the street? People just get to fucking in the street in the UK? That's wild. That's wild. Um, whilst units of the Met Police, not all forces, do worse. Okay, so you're saying like the army guys are just gonna sit there and let the orgy happen, but the Met Police jumped in and fucked it all up, literally or metaphorically, however you want to look at it. But that's funny. That's funny. They got orgies in the streets. Sasha Khan, you have to explain. You have to link the article. I would like to read that story. Other towns are relatively less misogynistic and racist in police than the Met Police. So I think you're implying that the police in London are hella racist and misogynistic, and they're bad at, you know, keeping the peace during an orgy during the streets. I can't think of any time the police are just going to let an orgy happen in public, in broad daylight. But you have to link that article. I never heard about that, Sasha Khan. Please let us know about the orgy, the consensual orgy in the public streets. All right. So let's go here. Then in June, Markel got into an argument with his sister. He had a meltdown, slamming doors and throwing things. Miss Atkins said, feeling helpless to control him, she called the police, and Mr. Crockett, the police officer, put Markel in handcuffs in the back of his cruiser. When Mr. Crockett showed up, he asked to speak privately with Markel. The officer let him into the car. Mr. Crockett empathized with Markel. He told the teenager that he himself had lost my anger a little bit with his girlfriend a few days earlier and had to reel himself in. Everybody gets angry, Mr. Crockett told Markel. But right now, at this moment, you got to control it. He leveraged Markel's aspirations, promising that he could still appear in the Go Yella video. I'm still your big brother, he assured him. I'll always be out here. Markel settled down, and the police officer, with Miss Atkins' blessing, let Mr. Crockett take the boy to another relative's house. So here's a faith-based movement here. By the way, they got some horrible pictures in the New York Times for this article. All right. Anyway, Sasha Khan jumped into the chat. He said, no, the opposite. The army stopped it, but officers from the Met do worse. It was on base. I'll find the articles. So are you saying that there was an orgy that happened at the soldiers' base and the police showed up and broke up the soldiers who were all having sex together in a big pile, like in that South Park episode? Is that what you're saying? I am so confused. That Britain is a wild place. All right. Anyway, continuing here. Poverty has always bred violence. In the 1990s, an upsurge in violent crime led cities to try new methods to address it on the streets. The first experiments leaned heavily on law enforcement. Hotspots policing, for instance, the practice of focusing police attention on particular troubled neighborhoods spread around the country. Then in 1999, a Chicago epidemiologist named Gary Slutkin picked up an old idea of using outreach workers to mediate street disputes. Framing the problem in public health terms, he argued that retaliatory violence was like a communicable disease and that outreach workers, he called them violence interrupters, could mimic an immune response. Groups more or less modeled after Dr. Slutkin's organization came to be called Cure Violence popped up in other cities. Other efforts springing from communities found a foothold in the violence prevention universe. Youth counseling programs, visits with shooting victims while they are still in the hospital, clean up empty buildings and vacant lots that attract crime. These ideas had an instinctive appeal. Violence was not about bad people, but about behaviors that could be changed. And violence interruption, in particular, gave agency both to members of a stricken community and people who regretted their own violent history. Overall, these methods emphasized prevention rather than punishment. All these programs proliferated, however, policymakers had one overriding question: do they work? Strong evidence emerged that for some law enforcement efforts. Hotspot policing has been studied many times in different cities and has consistently been shown to reduce violence. A carrot and stick approach called focused deterrence, which offers counseling and job training alongside the threat of prosecution for future crimes, has also gotten a research thumbs up. Federal grants to initiate these policing programs often came with money for outside researchers to study them. Go into the comments here. Sasha Khan says, I was actually arguing that individual commanding officers, the Metropolitan Police, allow a sexual climate that degrades women, whilst the Army forbade the orgy. I see what you're getting at here. Now I understand the situation. So in most toxic, masculine, semi-fascist organizations, like most police forces, right? Not saying that the police naturally are fascist, but because of how our society is set up, our capitalistic society that values property owners and property in and of itself more than human beings, police can tend to become fascist, misogynistic, sexist organizations, right? We have a racism problem in many of our police forces, where many of our police are a part of secret white supremacist gangs inside the police force. So yeah, it's absolutely true that can happen. And now I understand what you're saying. So all right. The Army forbade the orgy, but in the police force, they had an orgy where a bunch of people were having sex together. Yeah, it was definitely a sexist thing. Is that what you're saying? But I don't know if a consensual orgy is sexist in and of itself. You got to explain that, Sasha Khan. I would like to chop it up with you about that. I definitely want to start doing some debates with people on Twitter and on X. So if y'all like to talk about these topics or other topics, let's debate them on my live stream on X. Follow me on Twitter, Laji Mriki. It's not hard to find. Just look at the movie reviews, click the link, and you can find me there. Anyway, continuing here. So, but money wasn't flowing to studies of community-based programs like violence interruption. Those studies require taxing, time-consuming design, said Jeffrey A. Butts, a violence researcher and director of the Research and Evaluation Center at the John Jay College of Criminal Justice. He lays some fault on researchers who prefer the easier work of analyzing police data. Much of the research that has been done on community prevention programs is not sufficiently rigorous, Dr. Butts argues. He has studied community interventions for decades and supports systemic responses to violence, but criticizes organizations that champion their success without sufficient data. I see it becoming a faith-based movement, Dr. Butts said. There has to be really transparent professional research in order to stand up in public and say this works. When it comes to community-based interventions, he added, we are nowhere close to having that. What troubles him most is that governments and foundations will walk away from programs that lack consistent and replicable evidence. This, he fears, will lead cities to rely only on strategies that have strong evidence, like policing. To bulk up on evidence, Baton Rouge hired a data analysis company to create a system to capture the raw data. That system is still in its infancy, Ms. Scott said, and needs at least 2 more years before the city should even consider commissioning a formal quantitative evaluation. We're still working like a science project in a testing and observation mode, she said. The burden of logging that raw data falls to the street team. It's not a job they particularly relish. They'll get up out of their beds at 2 o'clock in the morning morning to go do whatever it is that's necessary. Miss Tate Alexander said the work is fulfilling to them, but the writing part, yeah, no, that's not their favorite thing. About once a week, Miss Tate Alexander calls a day-to-day where they all come to the war room, a windowless hovel tucked away in a community center to get their logging done. Yeah, this is all bad. They got these people who could be, preventing gun violence, preventing people committing homicides or retaliatory violence, logging in paperwork. What they should be doing is using all this tax money to actually try to give people, I don't know, monthly stipends. Just straight up give people money, man. Give people jobs. Give people opportunities. This is ridiculous. This is just straight silly. $1 million grants, $1 million flooding in from the federal government to have people working on logging in paperwork about what they did yesterday. Okay? It's absolutely insane. Absolutely insane. So they categorize each interaction on the streets, a mediation, getting conflicting parties to talk about violence, talk before violence occurs, an intervention, an attempt to head off retaliation after a violent incident, or a prevention, an intervention that demonstrably headed off more violence. They record whom they talked to, what was said, and what they believe should be done next. We absolutely track everything, Ms. Tate Alexander said. This is sad. This is sad and silly. As somebody who does paperwork, somebody who has to enter in data into spreadsheets, a lot of the time you're just putting in nonsense. A lot of the times you're putting in nonsense. Let's keep it real. So these people are typing in P's and G's and M's and all this sort of stuff into the spreadsheet when really it doesn't matter. Really, it doesn't matter. This is all silly. And people are still dying regardless in Baton Rouge. This is not helping anybody. Okay, those reports are confidential to protect sources' safety and to preserve the team's independence from law enforcement and build trust with the community. But every month, categories and actions are counted anonymously and then fed into the system that tracks the entire Baton Rouge public safety program, which includes 20 other agencies and organizations. The dull mechanics of bureaucratic accountability are needed to comply with the multiple federal and private grants that pay for this work. Each grant has its own requirements. One afternoon, interventionists reviewed work assignments at one end of a war room conference table, while Ms. Tate Alexander reviewed spreadsheet format changes the city wanted as it tracked the spending of one federal grant. Blah, 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 blah. Basically, they have to look at all this paperwork. They're spending more time working on the paperwork than actually being outside in the streets. This is really bad. This is really bad. All right. I don't know. Let's go here to the comments. Sasha Khan said, because they care more about sexism than the Met. In my personal experience, Gloucestershire Constabulary seems to mostly have good officers, but there is sexism of omission in Cheltenham with how harassment is handled. But in Stroud, they seem okay. Very interesting, Sasha Khan, that you seem to be very worried about sexism in the police departments in the UK. Is it rampant? Are the police known for that? I believe recently, wasn't there a few years ago, there was a story about this London police officer who raped and killed a woman and tried to hide her body? Wasn't that a big story? I forgot about that. But yeah, I would imagine, in the land of J.K. Rowling, Miss Turf, Miss Transphobe, right? There's probably a lot of sexism there too, along with a lot of other isms as well as in the UK. But at least they don't have gun-ism. At least they don't have Second Amendment-ism in the UK where they just worship the gun, right? Anyway, continuing here. One afternoon, interventionists reviewed work assignments at one end of a war room conference table, while Ms. Tate Alexander reviewed spreadsheet format changes the city wanted as it tracked the spending of one federal grant. Ms. Sherrills was in town for one of his periodic visits. 6 feet tall, Mr. Sherrills was in town for one of his periodic visits. 6 feet tall with an ever-present Stacey Adams fedora, he cuts a striking figure. He is something of a celebrity in town, hugging and hand-slapping his way through talks and meetings. The demands of funders and the research community sometimes frustrate him. He fears that the emphasis in social science toward quantitative research strips out the texture of real lives. Statistics can't capture what Mark Hill felt when he won the talent competition, or how a visit from Liz Robinson comforted a grieving family. Mr. Sherrills is a believer in research. He was instrumental in getting a team from the University of California, Los Angeles to conduct a narrative evaluation of the Newark Street team, but even Newark Newark's precipitous fall in crime did not have the statistical backing necessary to prove that community-led interventions were responsible. When I brought up Dr. Butt's critiques to Mr. Sherrills, he grew heated, even tearing up at one point. Why we got to keep proving ourselves. The effort in Baton Rouge presents an opportunity not only to save lives, but to establish the community's role in doing so. While members of the street team groaned and eye-rolled through a conference call with the city official, Mr. Sherrills counseled patience. This, he told them, is the biggest challenge of this work. All this goddamn paperwork and bureaucracy, right? Anyway, going here to Sasha Khan. Sasha Khan's leaving some interesting comments. He said, all right. The officers in the Met were dismissed for bragging about it, but the Wayne Couzens wasn't dismissed until he murdered a woman despite a long history of treating women badly. And so if he was dismissed and investigated for other crimes before being convicted of that, Sarah Evgard might be alive today. Obviously, WC is in prison. Yeah, so yeah, that was a big story. I remember hearing about that. And I remember hearing about a lot of protests about Sarah Everard, the white woman in the UK who was murdered by the police, right? And yeah, Wayne Couzens as well. Okay, Wayne Couzens is the person who did the murder of Sarah Everard. Very interesting story. You know, it's not uncommon to hear stories about people in the women in the U.S. being murdered by the police, but it's not framed in the sense of sexism, like the instance of Sandra Bland, a black woman who was pulled over, harassed by the police, ended up in a jail cell and died a few days later. You know, that's not framed in sexism. There was a story of a white woman from Australia who was in Minneapolis, and a black Muslim police officer shot her because she wouldn't pull over. And I believe he got like 25 years, right? Showing that, you know, the system can punish police officers when they just have the wrong complexion for the protection. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, the thing about that I think is different in the UK and the US is that our instances of police violence against women is not framed in the sense of talking about sexism. It's framed in the sense of talking about just police brutality in general, because that's such a bigger problem. But because in the UK you don't have murderous police who murder thousands of your citizens every year, you're more able to nitpick and look at each individual case of police violence against the citizenry differently. So that's how I'm looking at that. But you let me know what you think, Sasha Khan. Should we in the U.S. look at the police murdering women in the framework of looking at sexism through that lens, or should we look at it a different way? Tell me how you see it, Sasha Khan. Great questions from Sasha Khan. Sasha Khan, you are going to be like the top commenter, you know, for this year, man. I'm sending hearts to you. For real, you the realest. You the realest. I'm going to leave that comment. Sasha Khan asking great questions. For real, for real. Sasha Khan asking great questions. He's the truth. Sasha Khan is asking excellent questions. This is what I wish my live chat was like all the time. Interesting, intellectual questions, questions that challenge, not just people, you know, throwing out platitudes. Very dope stuff Sasha Khan is saying right here. Anyway, in 2023, homicides and non-fatal shootings fell as quickly across the country as they had risen during the COVID years. Analysts posit that some combination of pandemic shutdowns and protests after the murder of George Floyd threw normal social supports and policing into chaos, and that the trend is starting to reverse as life gets back to normal. But the data puzzle applies here too. Nobody can say for sure. In Baton Rouge, homicides and non-fatal shootings dropped by 1/3 between 2021 and 2023 to 359 victims from 535. Oh, what a beautiful thing. We only had 359 people murdered this year. We only had 359 people. We're just this short from making one person murdered a day in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. This is America, folks. For anybody who says this is the freest, greatest nation on earth, 359 people got murdered in a city of 229,000. 229,000 people live in Baton Rouge. If that's not right, sorry, it's 221,000 people live in Baton Rouge, and 359 people were murdered in 1 year. I'm in Budapest, Hungary. Budapest, Hungary has a population of about 1.5 million people. I doubt there were 359 murders in all of Hungary last year or that year. That's insane. That's literally insane. Sorry. That was 2 years, 2021 to 2023. I apologize for anybody because I got my mistakes wrong. There were 359 murders in 2 years. Sorry, I got that wrong. Anyway, absolutely insane. Anyway, that was a sharper decline than in many other cities. America. Anyway, picture still isn't clear. Violence in Baton Rouge remains higher than it was in the years before the pandemic and is still extraordinarily high for a city its size. And there were 31 homicides in the first quarter of 2024, double the number in the same period in 2023. The answer to whether community-based efforts help Baton Rouge make significant strides will only come with rigorous research down the line. In July, Chief Paul announced he would retire after nearly 6 years on the job. Under his watch, officers' use of force went down, more black officers were hired, and department policies and crime statistics became more accessible. But throughout his tenure, there were pockets of opposition to his approach to violence prevention, including from members of the Metropolitan Council. Weeks after Mr. Paul announced his retirement, 2 lawsuits were filed claiming that officers secretly interrogated and brutalized suspects at a police warehouse. The mayor shut down the warehouse and the unit that was accused of using it. The lawsuits are ongoing. When questioned at a Metropolitan Council meeting about the lawsuits and alleged misconduct, Chief Paul lashed out at 2 council members who represent white majority districts, essentially accusing them of racist motivations and trying to undermine him and his efforts to rid the department of bad cops. Chief Paul, you can't be hollering racism when you help support white supremacy. Chief Paul, when you did not fire or press charges on the police officer that murdered an innocent black man, Alton Sterling, you can't then get in front of the cameras and give a tongue lashing to the white bosses who put you in power to then say, how dare you act racist towards me when I'm just trying to do my job as a cop. You upheld the system of white supremacy, you bitch. Stupid motherfucker. You can't say that. You can't say that. Once you had the opportunity, you were the boss, and you probably still are the boss of a cop who is murderous on your force, who is murderous and racist, and yet you probably still sign his paychecks every day. But you get in front of the cameras and then say stuff like, oh, the city council is being racist towards me. Fuck out of here. All right? Anyway, continuing here. So Chief Paul lashed out at 2 council members who represent white majority districts, essentially accusing them of racist motivations and trying to undermine him and his efforts to rid the department of quote-unquote bad cops. They denied his accusations and then unsuccessfully pressed the mayor to fire Mr. Paul ahead of his planned departure. White supremacy breaks their tools after they use them. Shout out Professor Black Truth. Anyway, community members held a Stand with Chief Murphy Paul rally outside a police headquarters. In the front row at that rally was Miss Robinson. Fuck this police officer, man. He's a bitch. He's a bitch. Fuck him. Anyway, Chief Paul's replacement is Thomas S. Morse Jr., a 20-year veteran of the department. Mr. Morse, who is white, came into office voicing support for the community's role in violence prevention. At first, Miss Robinson and Miss Tate Alexander seemed wary when I asked about him. They didn't know him, they said, but hoped he would follow Chief Paul's example. As 2023 came to a close, the street team faced new troubles. In early December, Mr. Crockett, the street team member who had mentored Mr. Marco, was charged with aggravated battery, domestic abuse, and child endangerment. His girlfriend told the police that he had slammed her head against the wall and thrown a steam iron at her while children were sleeping in the next room. Oh my God. When I called Mr. Crockett to ask about the police report, he confirmed that he and his girlfriend had fought, but insisted he had not attacked her. Ms. Tate Alexander said that Mr. Crockett is dedicated to his work and that she has never seen him be violent. When he told her about the charges, she put Mr. Crockett on an unpaid suspension for a week, but he is back at work until the case against him is resolved. She will be guided by what happens in court. He pleaded not guilty at his arraignment in March. On December 30th, Baton Rouge recorded its last homicide of 2023. A 20-year-old man named Dylan Fillmore Mitchell had been shot multiple times in his car. Miss Robinson heard about it when her aunt called that morning. The brutal intimacy of concentrated violence has struck again. Mr. Fillmore Mitchell was her aunt's grandson. Ain't that a shame? Miss Robinson rushed to her family. A video taken at a memorial a week later captured Miss Robinson in her community organizing element, reminding the mourners that after they moved on, the family would still grieve. I'm telling y'all because I know, she said, tapping her chest for emphasis. Mr. Fillmore Mitchell and Miss Robinson's son, Louis, shared a birthday 15 years apart. Gun violence had touched my family again, she told me. And I put so much hard work in it, in the work, for my family to be protected. She described the torment she had felt, her mind spinning, trying to fathom what more she could do. I know I couldn't touch everybody, she said. I know that. I just have to work harder. And that's the end of the article here. Very sad to hear how this article ended with some of the workers of this, gun outreach program, even their family members themselves getting killed by gun violence, and also one of the guys who's a part of the program ending up, charged with violence to some degree, like domestic violence and stuff like that. All of this is a bit unnecessary. All the data entry, all the paper pushing, all the shake and baking, all the hand back slapping and community organizing, all that stuff is useless, because what we need is big action. We need jobs. We need opportunity. We need to make sure that everybody who is under 18 has some form of work or opportunity or schooling. We need to make college universal and free for everybody. A lot of these young people don't have the opportunity to go to LSU or Tulane or Loyola or any of the numerous universities around Louisiana. Make it all free for the people. Give the people opportunity to grow and develop. That's facts, period. We have enough money in Louisiana. We have enough money in America to make sure every black boy, black girl, black citizen, to make sure every citizen, white, black, whatever, in Louisiana has the opportunity to have a free college tuition, right? And also a job as well. Anyway, Sasha Khan jumped into the comments. He says, so maybe racism but not sexism is a factor in U.S. police murder of black women, or maybe both are factors. I would say both can be factors, but I think the biggest differentiating factor, Sasha Khan, is that in the U.S., the police are in rightful fear of their lives because many of the citizens have guns, including women. So the police look at videos on the internet where cop gets murdered, right? Cop walks up and does a traffic stop. Somebody points a gun out the window, blows their brains out, right? The police spread those videos around amongst themselves, and they always have a fear because we live in a society loaded with guns. So the police are more likely to murder civilians because they see the real danger, or the fact that the person that they're pulling over could have a gun. That's why they're turned up, and that's why they're on edge. Yes, there is racism attached to it. Yes, there is sexism attached to it. But the biggest reason we have police getting murdered in the U.S., and also the reason the police are shooting at people, is partially anti-black racism when the victims are black, but the police are also murdering a ton of white folks as well, and that's because the police know that a lot of white folks have guns. And as much as white folks love white supremacy in general, they love their own lives more than anything. That's my opinion, Sasha Khan, but what do you think? Anyway, Kamal jumped into the chat. He said, it'll get there, and then he put the graph sign up. I don't know what you mean. Are you talking about the homicides going up, or are you talking about the number of young black folks in college going up? I don't know. Anyway, this is the Louisiana live stream. Let's go to a less deadly topic, a less bloody topic. Louisiana is getting a new city. All right, Louisiana will get a new city after a years-long court battle. The state Supreme Court cleared the way for a part of Baton Rouge to become the city of St. George. Critics say the white, wealthier enclave separating from the capital could have devastating consequences. Constituents going over the map of the proposed Baton Rouge-St. George division line in 2019. This was written by Rick Rojas. Rick Rojas, who covers Louisiana at the Times Southern Bureau Chief, reported on the campaign to create St. George and the ballot initiative in 2019. April 28th, 2024, the original plan was to start a school district. That didn't work. So a group of residents in a sprawling, unincorporated suburb of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, expanded their idea, create a city of their own called St. George. In 2015, they collected signatures to bring their proposal up for a vote, but didn't get enough. In 2019, they tried again. This time they made it a ballot and won the election, only to be stalled by a lengthy court battle. But the Louisiana Supreme Court cleared the way on Friday for the formation of St. George, a city of nearly 100,000 people that joins the ranks of the state's largest cities. That's insane. So it's basically like they created a white Baton Rouge. That's insane, because we saw from the previous article, Baton Rouge is only about 221,000 people. They basically, because we already know Baton Rouge is segregated. All the white folks live on the north side or something, and all the black folks on the south side. So it seems like they cut off a big portion of the city, and now we have Baton Rouge and St. George, and they took half of the population with them. That's insane. That's insane. The white folks in Louisiana, I told y'all, they are wicked. The white folks that I grew up with in Louisiana literally got tails and horns. I'm telling y'all, these people are insane. They will do whatever to hold on to white supremacy and hold on to power. I'm telling y'all don't know about this. Y'all don't know about this. They took half of the population with them and created a whole new white city. That's crazy. That's crazy. All right. But the Louisiana Supreme Court cleared the way on Friday for the formation of St. George, a city of nearly 100,000 people that joins the ranks of the state's largely 2 decades. A majority of justices found that lower courts had erred in blocking the city's creation over concerns of its financial viability. This is the culmination of citizens exercising their constitutional rights. Andrew Murrow, a leader of the effort to create the city, said in a statement, adding, "Now we begin the process of delivering on our promises of a better city." The city will consist of an area of East Baton Rouge Parish, which is run by a blended government that oversees both Baton Rouge and the broader parish. It also carves out a largely white and more affluent section of the parish southeast of Baton Rouge. That's crazy. That's crazy. I need to see the map because it sounds like they're going around. Like they took a part of the north and then also a part of the south as well. All right. Going to go to the comments here. Kamal said in the comments, "I tried out for the U.S. Capitol Police. So glad I didn't get it alongside assholes like him." I don't know exactly who are the assholes you are talking about. But yeah, whatever you're doing, Kamal, I hope it's lucrative for you and I hope it makes you happy, whatever job you have. Anyway. So it also carves out a largely white and more affluent section of the parish, southeast of Baton Rouge. The ruling signaled a victory for a campaign that had endured since 2012 and was built on frustrations about schools, crime, infrastructure, and the resources devoted to that part of the parish. But its opponents, including parish leaders, as well as a powerful cross-section of business and civic leaders, contended that the complaints driving the campaign were unfounded and unfair. They argued that the plan for a new city was poorly conceived and would cause turbulence for the parish as a whole rather than improve anyone's quality of life. There is no basis, in fact, that the existence of St. George is positive or will bring positivity or have a positive impact on any areas of the cities or the parish, said M.E. Cormier, who was a leader of a group that campaigned against St. George. Critics also said that the grievances were masking other motivations, describing the effort as an example of wealthy white community trying to distance itself from the black and poor residents in Baton Rouge. Some were disappointed that the challenge was now exhausted and believed that the parish residents who live outside St. George but would feel its impact should have had more of a say. All right. Mayor Sharon Weston Broome was one of the principal challengers to St. George. In this photo, she is greeted by the former basketball player Collis Temple. So, yeah, anyway, continuing here. Sharon Weston Broome, the mayor-president leading the combined Baton Rouge and East Baton Rouge parish governments, had been one of the principal challengers to St. George. But in a news conference on Friday, Ms. Broome tried to send a more conciliatory message, acknowledging that the court's ruling was the end to the saga. "My goal from the very beginning, and it will always be my goal, is to advocate for a united Baton Rouge," Ms. Broome told reporters, referring to the goal of minimizing division. "Even if St. George becomes its own municipality, I'm committed to serving the residents of St. George." Trying to forge a friendly relationship between the governments means overcoming acrimony that has festered for more than a decade. The drive to establish St. George was started by residents who wanted to form their own school district because of concerns that East Baton Rouge parish schools were troubled and underperforming. When their first bid failed to get enough votes in the state legislature, organizers were told they might have a better standing with a city of their own. So in 2015, they sketched out an area of 85 square miles and 107,000 residents that would form the new city. But they did not gather enough signatures for the proposal to advance to a vote. Several years later, they shaved the area down to include 60 square miles and 86,000 people and collected enough signatures for a ballot initiative in 2019. The measure won 54% of the vote. Since then, the area shrunk even more as some properties within the new city lines were annexed by Baton Rouge. The paths to the incorporation of St. George resembled in many ways the one taken by the last city formed in Louisiana, just on a larger scale. The city of Central, which is also in East Baton Rouge Parish and has nearly 30,000 people, was established in 2005 after failed attempts to start a new school district. So this has been done before in Baton Rouge. Very interesting. Very interesting. I wish I knew more about this. I need to start covering more Louisiana stories, man, because Louisiana's got some fucked up stories. Y'all think Florida's crazy. Wait till y'all hear about what goes down in Louisiana. Anyway, these white supremacists are sick. They're sick, man. Anyway, continuing here. The success of the 2019 vote spurred an immediate legal challenge as parish officials feared the consequences of losing $48 million in annual tax revenues. They argued that the new city could not operate with a balanced budget, and the proposed budget for St. George was inaccurate. A lower court judge agreed, but the state Supreme Court, in the majority opinion, said that parish officials were relying on flawed figures and that the city could operate within its estimated tax revenues. Justice William J. Crane, the author of the majority opinion, also pushed back on the assertion that the new city would contribute to the deterioration of Baton Rouge, the parish seat with just over 220,000 residents. He wrote that the population of St. George was growing as Baton Rouge's declined, and a flourishing St. George might stanch and migration to surrounding parishes with more shared interests, including more desirable school districts. We conclude St. George can provide public services within a reasonable period of time, Justice Crane wrote, speaking for the 4-3 majority. Now the campaign to establish St. George, named for an extinct parish that once included the area, is moving ahead with the business of assembling a city government essentially from scratch. Governor Jeff Landry will appoint an interim mayor and city council. St. George already has its own fire department and will continue to rely on the East Baton Rouge Parish Sheriff's Department for its policing needs. Many other city services will be privatized, adhering to a vision articulated by organizers to maintain as felt of an operation as possible. I look forward to our ability to build an efficient, productive, and vibrant city while contributing to a thriving East Baton Rouge Parish. Norman Browning, one of the chairmen of the campaign, said in a statement. Sounds like it's going to be libertarian hell, man. Like they're gonna privatize the fire department, privatize the police department, privatize the water, privatize the electricity, privatize the street paving. Like it's gonna be libertarian hell. So I'm hearing. Crazy to hear that Baton Rouge divided itself. I did not know about this. All right. So Kamal said, I mean more folks on your live stream. All right, let me go back here. I tried out for the Okay, I mean more folks on your live streams. Okay, so you're saying more folks jumping in the live stream? Well, it'll happen eventually. I do these live streams for my own education. I view myself as an educator. I view myself as somebody who's not coming here to entertain. I'm coming here to have real conversations with real people and learn about new ideas and learn about what's happening in the world, give my takes on it, hear your takes on it, and have a debate. This is not a channel like Kai Sanat or Aiden Ross, where I'm going to come on here and make a fool of myself. I'm coming here to grow my brain, right? I'm a university student going to get my bachelor's again, then my master's, then my PhD. I'm a man dedicated to the word, dedicated to education, dedicated to growing my mind. So if you're into that, you'll like my channel too. If you don't, go watch big booty girls twerking. Hey, it's YouTube. You can find anything. Matt Villainy jumped into the comments. He said, I saw the headline yesterday. Crazy. Yeah, Matt Villainy, if you live in Baton Rouge, tell me, how do the people of Baton Rouge feel about the city of St. George? And is it really like all the white folks of Baton Rouge basically creating their own city? That's crazy if that actually is the case. If y'all let the white folks of Baton Rouge just run off with all those tax dollars, all that good property, all the great schools, and then left you niggas with nothing, that would be the worst. But Matt Villainy, let me know. Let me know. Anyway, Kamal says, I always said either Mississippi or Louisiana are the most prejudiced. Yep, absolutely. Louisiana is racism hell. Louisiana is hell on earth. And Mississippi is close too. They're both cousins. Anyway. So I look forward to our ability to build an efficient, productive, and vibrant city while contributing to a thriving East Baton Rouge Parish, Norman Browning, one of the chairmen of the campaign, said in a statement. But some fear that will be no easy undertaking and that the process will be fraught and complicated negotiation. The detanglement, logistically speaking, is going to be an absolute nightmare, Ms. Cormier said. Ms. Cormier, 39, said that St. George is an area that has transformed in her lifetime living in Baton Rouge. She remembers when the area, now bustling with suburban homes and commerce, was filled with farmland and trees. That growth, she said, came from the parish's investment. There are legacy costs associated with that, Ms. Cormier said. That is a bill they will be expected to pay. Their citizens will be expected to pay, and it will be due and owing on day one. So that's the story of this city in Baton Rouge that now exists called St. George. Folks are just running off with the money. See, this is white supremacy in play. Instead of improving the school system for everybody's children, they just wanted to create their own school district, right? Instead of actually trying to make a better society for all Americans, which is something black people are obsessed with doing. We're obsessed with saying we want to make a better society for everybody. We want to lift every voice. A rising tide lifts all boats, all that sort of stuff. Black people are insistent on trying to make a better society for everybody. But what did the white folks in Louisiana do? In Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when the school system was failing, when the roads were falling apart, when there's too much crime in Baton Rouge, they just said, let's take all the wealthy enclaves, the wealthy communities, the wealthy suburbs, and create our own city, create our own tax force, create our own police force, and just run away and leave you niggas in the dust. That's absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Anyway, so Kamal said, I was referring to that pathetic police chief. Yeah, we were talking about the police chief earlier who had the chance to fire the cop who murdered a black man named Alton Sterling, and instead he decided to keep him on the force, but then he complained to the city hall later that they were being racist against him for not being able to enforce the laws. Anyway, very interesting story here in Baton Rouge that they're going to create a new city of St. George. Very interesting. This is the Louisiana live stream. We're talking about the most racist, the most evil, the most vile state in the nation, my home state of Louisiana. If you want to know where your boy come from, I'm from Monroe, Louisiana, right here. Not that far from, all the great things that exist in the state, like Confederate flags, pickup trucks, unemployment, violence, poverty. Yeah, all the stuff. That's great. You get what I'm saying? Yeah, this is Louisiana for you folks. Anyway, gonna do one last story for Louisiana. We're gonna go to New Orleans. Yes, New Orleans. The big NO, the big easy. Yes, Lord. Yes, Lord. Gonna read this story here. In New Orleans, they like to drink alcohol. Well, New Orleans likes to drink. They spotted a huge recycling opportunity, turning discarded glass into sand at Glass Half Full, the only glass recycling facility in New Orleans. College students started a venture that has diverted glass bottles from landfills and crushed them into sand for coastal restoration efforts. For people that don't know, Louisiana has a coast that they say is always disappearing. Like when I was in school, I was told that our coastline is losing like a football field every day, which I think is technically impossible. I think it's kind of impossible for a football field to be gone every single day, because if that was the case, the Louisiana coastline would be up here where Winfield is by now. But anyway, this is what they've always told us all our lives, that the coastline is disappearing. So they're probably crushing up these glass bottles to make sand for the beaches down there and stuff like that. Anyway, Matt Villainy says, from what I understand, St. George is its own thing. I don't know why. I'm not necessarily against having your own town, but the way they did it is criminal. Yeah, basically, watch the live stream or click the link in my description. Basically, it seems like all the white folks in your city took all the nice land, took all their taxes, took all the good schools, and left the niggas with nothing. Left the niggas with basically Boosie land. Basically, Baton Rouge now is nothing but little Boosies and NBA young boys running around with Dracos and sticks. And all the good white folks took all the great things about the city and took it into St. George. That's how I'm understanding it. But let me know, Matt Villainy, how it is down there in Biara. In Biara. In Biara, the red stick. Anyway. Let's go here to New Orleans. So, Kara Buckley, April 27, 2024. It started with a lament over the fate of empty beer and wine bottles. In early 2020, Franziska Troutman and Max Stites, then seniors at Tulane University, were spitballing ways to keep their glass out of the trash. For all of its imbibing, New Orleans didn't offer curbside glass recycling. Pretty much all the many bottles drained in the Crescent City end up in landfills. For Miss Troutman and Mr. Stites, this wasn't just galling, but a missed opportunity. The city's wetlands were fast eroding, and glass could be ground up into sand. What if they collected glass around town, crushed it into sand, and put it put it to good use. Buoyed by the optimism of youth and enthusiastic crowdfunding, they bought a small glass pulverizer and put it in the backyard of an accommodating local fraternity, Zeta Psi. Almost immediately, their drop-off barrels were overflowed. We underestimated how much demand there was, Mr. Stites, 27, said. Now, 4 years later, their company, Glass Half Full, is the only glass recycling facility in New Orleans. It has become the founder's full-time work, employs a staff of 15, and has expanded far beyond what they imagined. To date, their operation has crushed 7 million pounds of glass that's been used in disaster relief sandbags, terrazzo flooring, landscaping, wetland restoration, and research. They offer a curbside pickups in New Orleans and Baton Rouge, and recently opened a small facility in Birmingham, Alabama. The company is poised to move to a 3-acre site in St. Bernard Parish after raising $4.5 million to build out and equip the new location, which they will rent. Glass Half Full's revenues last year were $1 million, according to Miss Troutman, 26, who said the venture was breaking even. Profitability in glass recycling depends on quality, proximity to a recycling facility, and how glass containers are collected. Glass that is gathered with paper, plastic, and other recyclables becomes contaminated and difficult to sort, driving down its value, said Scott DeFife, president of the Glass Packaging Institute, a trade association. So while glass can be endlessly recycled, it often isn't. The folks at Glass Half Full are doing yeoman's work down there, Mr. DeFife said. But he added the reason they had to exist was indicative of the broken system of waste management in this country. In many ways, Glass Half Full is testing whether it can solve a mismatch. Can anybody tell me what is yeoman? What does yeoman mean? This is a new word for me. I got to look it up. Yeoman definition. Let me look this up. All right, a man holding and cultivating a small landed estate, a freeholder, a person qualified for certain duties and rights, such as the serve or juries or votes for kings and knights. Okay, blah, 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 blah. Okay, yeoman's work. I got to look up this phrase. What is yeoman work definition? What does this mean? Yeoman work, very good, hard, and valuable work that someone does, especially to support a cause, to help a team, etc. I see. So it's basically meaning like doing good work just for good work's sake. Okay, got you. Okay. Thank you to everybody sending hearts in the chat. Don't know who's sending hearts, but leave comments. Let us know what y'all think. Should these people be crushing up glass and trying to save Louisiana? Because in my opinion, they're doing the devil's work, because Louisiana should be underwater. They should be making sure Louisiana go under the water. You get what I'm saying? Don't crush up the glass and try to put it on the beach. Crush up the glass and try to put it in the drinks of all those conservative Republicans and politicians who are making it harder for black people to get jobs in Louisiana, to have new opportunities in Louisiana, to go to college in Louisiana. Do all of that, man. That's what I'm saying. Anyway, let me finish up this article, then I'm going to wrap it up here. So here is Francisca Troutman, Center, and Max Stites, founder of Glass Half Full, at a recycling event in Jefferson Parish. All right, so here they are right here. Oh, she is not a looker. She is not a looker. That's all I'll say. About a third of glass thrown out in the United States is recycled, while recycling rates in New Orleans are among the lowest in the country. At the same time, sand, which is crucial for construction, is in growing demand around the world. The United Nations has warned of a looming shortage, but excavating sand is often environmentally damaging, and its weight makes it expensive to transport. In Louisiana, where wetlands have been vanishing at an average rate of a football field every 100 minutes, the state needs millions of cubic meters of material to rebuild its coast. Yet upriver dredging and damming of the Mississippi River keep sediment that could otherwise be used for wetland restoration in faraway states too expensive to ship. Glass Half Full's operations are still small, and its coastal restoration work is still largely in the research stage, but its founders say that the pulverizing bottles in New Orleans and using the sand for local projects could help lessen the environmental damage and expense of dredging and shipping, while at the same time diverting glass from landfills. It's a win-win proposition. Miss Troutman's and Mr. Stites say. Another person in the coastal industry called this a pop-up quarry, Miss Troutman said. We can generate sediment in the city, which usually isn't possible. At Tulane, Miss Troutman, who is from rural Louisiana, studied chemical engineering. Mr. Stites grew up in Manhattan and Brooklyn and majored in international development after spending a gap year in Greece volunteering with refugees. With another Tulane student, Max Landy, they started a nonprofit in 2019 called Plant the Peace, which raised money to plant trees. Mr. Stites, appalled at the paucity of local recycling options, thought they should branch out into recycling glass. At the time, New Orleans was accepting glass from residents just once a month and had a cap of 50 pounds per person. All right, Miss Troutman right here. She looks a bit better now. She done cleaned up. She done cleaned up. All right. So, Matt Villainy said, Kamal said, and crayfish. Okay. I don't know exactly what you're talking about. Louisiana's got a lot of crawfish, you mean? Nobody calls it crayfish. We don't call it crayfish. It's called crawfish, right? Pedro Cordero jumped into the chat. He said, LY, my black heart. And then he did a laughing emoji. Then he said the tilt. Pedro Cordero, by the way, for everybody who's listening, Pedro Cordero is one of the is a very stupid person who jumps into my chat. I don't know why Pedro Cordero is here, but y'all give Pedro Cordero a nice warm welcome by telling him hi stupid or hi dummy. Tell him hi idiot. You know what I mean? He's not very bright. It's not very bright. Anyway, continuing here. Let's go on and continue in the story. Kind of actually bored with the story, but I'm going to finish it up. We finish what we start here. So the group hadn't fully researched whether pulverized glass could be used to restore wetlands, but still forged ahead and announced this fundraising plan on social media where it caught fire. Okay, so these people didn't even know if what they were doing was good. They might actually they might actually try to hurt people. They might actually kill people by putting pulverized glass onto onto a beach. People might step on that and sniff that. Anyway, Kamal said they did the same shit in Mississippi with the education system. What do you mean? Like they put pulverized glass into children's books? Because that would explain Mississippi's education system. Anyway, going ahead and continuing here. The project was scrappy and driven by a do-it-yourself ethos. They couldn't afford trash cans, let alone recycling bins with wheels. So Miss Tautman found cheap, used 55-gallon barrels that they placed with permission at a few churches, a pizza shop, and in Mr. Stites' front yard. They raised enough to buy their first glass crusher for a few $1,000 and soon discovered how smelly, messy, and loud the work was. At one point, even the fraternity brothers complained, albeit during finals week. The police were also called, though officers ended up telling the students to carry on, Miss Tautman said. All right. All right, Matt Villainy says, you mean these students did not test their theory? No, they sort of just said, hey, guys, give us money because we're going to crush up glass and then throw it on the beach and it will turn into sand. And then people just gave it to them. Like, what? That's crazy. Anyway, the venture made the local news, and their drop-off sites were quickly overwhelmed. They raised funds for more glass crushers and moved to a small workshop, which Mr. Stites said we outgrew on day 2. Helped by more crowdfunding and a growing team of volunteers, they relocated to a 40,000 square foot warehouse in August 2020. Continuing here. Their early batches went into sandbags for flooding, which they doled out for a suggested donation of $5 apiece. A local terrazzo maker wanted crushed blue glass, so they began sorting their bottles by color and selling to local landscapers. They also sell glass, sand, and gravel on their website. This sounds bad. This sounds very bad for the environment. Like if the glass seeps into the soil, wouldn't that make it harder for plants to grow or grass to grow? I don't know. Along with selling their glass products and regularly hosting fundraisers. One was named Glastonbury. They also started offering residential and commercial glass collection for a fee. They expanded curbside pickup to Baton Rouge and most recently Birmingham, where they plan to sell the colored scraps of waste glass that can be remelted for glass manufacturing and perhaps fiberglass production. Part of the puzzle is building up demand, Mr. Stites said. With any of these, we need tremendous volume. Their first business customer was Snake and Jake's Christmas Club Lounge, a ramshackle light festoon dive bar close to the Tulane campus. It drives me crazy how everybody's having a great time partying down here and throwing trash away like it's nothing, said the bar's owner Dave Clements, a self-described old hippie who pays glass half full $165 a month to collect his bar's cast-offs. They're well intentioned, he said, and I think it's helping. All right. So yeah, here's Dave Clements, owner of Snake and Jake's Christmas Club Lounge, which was Glass Half Full's first commercial customer. All right, so he gave them their first contract. All right, so basically, they're assigned to throw away all the empty Jack Daniels bottles, crush it up, and throw it on the beaches of Louisiana. We have the smartest people, don't we? We have the smartest. Anyway, I'm going to finish up this article right here. In 2021, research began into the heart of their work, analyzing whether their glass was safe for the environment. Julie Albert, an associate professor in Tulane's Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, led a team that found the company's glass, sand, and gravel was clean, with low levels of lead and other contaminants. In greenhouse experiments, they found that native plants grew well in the glass sand and that it didn't kill fish or crabs or damage their soft tissues. The project was awarded $5 million from the National Science Foundation to expand the research, and the team is in the process of publishing their findings. After the product was determined to be ecologically safe, Glass Half Full installed a demonstration project on Point Ocean, tribal land, building a rain garden, a glass gravel drain, and garden beds. They supplied 100,000 pounds of sand in biodegradable burlap bags to build berms at Big Ranch Marsh National Wildlife Refuge on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain in New Orleans, where storm surges and winds have caused saltwater to intrude in freshwater. All right. Still, there is skepticism about how effectively glass, sand, and sediment can restore wetlands on beaches. Anyway, going here to the comments here. Kamal said, crushing glass. Yeah, the idea is to crush the glass and apparently make it into sand that they can put on beaches in Louisiana, because Louisiana is losing so much coastline because of erosion, because Louisiana is under sea level, right? And we're constantly under threat of hurricanes and stuff like that. So that was the reason to crush the glass. Apparently, they did research and found out that there's only a little bit of lead in it and that plants kind of grow okay while in the glass, so they're saying it's okay to do. Pedro Cordero said, going to watch my cat snoring, not so boring. Okay, so Pedro Cordero is, once again, not an intellectual person. He's not here to learn. He's not here to come to the class. He's not here to have intellectual discussion. He would rather play with his pussy than actually try to learn. So Pedro Cordero, you can jump out of the chat. Coastline that the Portuguese didn't discover. Yeah, coastline that the Portuguese didn't discover because you were too busy slaving and raping black women and cutting off the genitalia of black men. Yes, your people were too busy being evil to discover a land that people were living on for thousands of years. Pedro Cordero, you sick, nasty fuck. All right, now go ahead and play with your pussy and get off of my live stream. Anyway, continuing here. Still, there is skepticism about how effectively glass and sand and sediment can restore wetlands or beaches. James Karst, a spokesman for the Coalition to Restore Coastal Louisiana, a nonprofit group that has worked with Glass Half Full on several projects, pointed to the raft of problems coastal Louisiana faces: sinking earth, rising sea levels, river levees, and natural wetlands long ago carved up by logging and the fossil fuel industry. Our problems are tremendous here, and putting more all right. Our problems are tremendous here, and putting more sand into our coastal wetlands is not going to solve all of our problems, he said. He also said while using dredged material works for restoring small targeted sites, a focus of Glass Half Full's work is expensive, not sustainable for rebuilding land, and does not last. Effective land restoration has to include reconnecting the river to wetlands, he said, an effort currently underway. In an email, Ms. Tartman said the company didn't view its product as a panacea, but rather one small part of the solution to solving our coastal erosion crisis. She noted that the glass they recycled would otherwise end up in the landfill, and that crucially, the company was getting local residents to help struggling wetlands. The more people we can get involved and passionate about this topic, she said, the better off we will be. Yeah, as much as I want to see Louisiana like save its coastline, not really. But as much as I want this to happen, it's kind of doomed because global warming is a real thing. The sea levels are rising all across the world. New Orleans is going to be Atlantis. The coastline is going to be where I don't know Oakdale is or Ville Platte is or something. Like Louisiana is fucked. Like this place will not exist in 1,000 years. So crushing up glass and putting it on the beach, it seems kind of silly and frivolous to me. Anyway, crawfish typo. Kamal said it's a typo. It's okay. Some people say crayfish, but it's actually crawfish. I've never heard somebody say crawfish. All right. Tim Calma controlling Rapaz. They talking in Portuguese now. You need to talk to your Portuguese brother, man. Talk to your Portuguese brother. Anyway, that's the end of this topic here about yeah, that's the end of this topic. I found this somewhat interesting, though a bit silly. Y'all let me know what y'all think about pink-haired women. Are pink-haired women like a red flag? This is the last question for the group. Pink-haired women, red flag or DTF? Who knows? Pink-haired women, I vote red flag. I vote they're big red flags. They seem unstable. She got the pink hair. If she's got pink hair and she's also wearing long sleeves, there's probably some cuts and scrapes on those arms. She's not the type. It's not the type you can wife. Red flag, but sometimes we'll clap. Mad villainy. Mad villainy. Red flag, but sometimes we'll clap. It's a pink flag. Well, pink hair is a big red flag, I would say. Yeah. Okay. Well, this was fun. This was fun. Thank you everybody for watching. Oh man. Kamal said in the comments, hold on, wait. The majority invested in private schooling and left the black educational sectors behind in Mississippi. Kamal, are you from Mississippi? Because yeah, that sounds right. That sounds about right. In Mississippi, they basically just, took all the money and ran. White folks run Mississippi, even though it's the blackest state in the union. What's that say? What does that say? I don't know. Anyway, I'll leave y'all here with this pink-haired beaut right here. Y'all, I'll leave y'all here with this pink-haired beaut. Anyway, catch you on the next live stream. I'm going to be posting the articles I'm going to be reading on my live streams daily ahead of time, so that way y'all will know what I'm going to be talking about. If you have any suggestions, send them my way. I will read the articles. I'm trying to react to everything that comes my way from the people. This is the People's channel, and I'm the People's Champ. My name is Simon Hill. This is the Louisiana live stream. We out here. Wow. Yeah. Peace.